listening to Yo. I'm Aaron Jackson, and I'm joined today by MyKill Mayhem from United Slaves of Amerika. Hi, MyKill.
Hi, how are you doing tonight, Aaron?
I'm good. So, on the last show, we got cut off because we ran out of time, and we were talking about the Israel and Palestine conflict. So should we go back into that subject so we can
I figured
go back into that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, that's where I figured I would probably like to start as well, because it just got cut off there as I was making a point that, a lot of times they say that it's Israel's on defense. So I sat and researched all of the major conflicts that have taken place in the area since the creation of the State of Israel. And when you look over the history of it, that's, as I said, as we were just cut off there, I just got out that the most I'll give anybody is that they were on offense 7 times, on defense 2 times, and the other 2 I'd say were a tie. But I consider it to be 9 times they were on offense and 2 times they were on defense. Most particularly, one of the ones that they consider them to have been on defense, there was the Six-Day War in '67, and that was in the summer months that started, that Israel actually surprise attacked Egypt and also invaded Syria and Jordan on the same day. And so they took some lands from Egypt, conquered those lands, and so then around December, then Egypt attacked Israel on what were their lands. So I see that as, they got surprise attacked, they had to get their forces together and make a push to push them back out of their country. So that one's considered defense for Israel, but they were illegally occupying another nation. So, to me, they started that one, and it just took Egypt a little while to get a proper response together to push them back out of their country. So I would consider them as still having started that one on offense. And then the first intifada, I should say, was basically civil disobedience. They were boycotting Israeli products. They weren't paying taxes, levies, things like that. So that was all they were doing on their side that I could find in my research on the net at all. There was no violence on the side of Palestine in the event of the first intifada. And so then Israel came attacked when they were doing peaceful things like civil disobedience and not paying taxes and things like that. And so then in the second intifada, then Palestine attacked back. But once again, I would see that more or less as a retaliation for having been attacked themselves. That one, of course, was a little bit longer of a period of time, that transpired. So that's why I say, in that gray area there between Intifada number 2 and the recent Pillar of Cloud, those could be considered kind of ties, because a lot of people weren't aware of it, because a lot of what Israel does, as I had mentioned last time, goes under the radar, doesn't get reported on the news. And so then when Palestine does something to defend themselves, then, of course, that gets all the play in the press. And so then Israel can say, we were just defending ourselves. But in the week prior to that, they were going in and bulldozing people's houses down, and, of course, they had military escort standing there with rifles, while men, women, and children are all crying, because their house is being torn down by a bulldozer. And not only did they do that in the week prior to Hamas starting to fire on Israel, they also took the bulldozers and destroyed water supplies for villages and townships. And so, basically killing people there, even if the water is just used for irrigation, not drinking purposes and things like that and cooking, then you still need water for irrigation, for sewage, things of this nature. So, that you're going to be killing people because there's going to be more diseases even, once again, if you further remove it and say it's just for sewage, and things like that, then you're still going to be putting people in conditions that are, more prevalent for disease, to be occurring and killing people. So,
and
like I say, Hamas fires back and then they're on defense.
I just want to mention about a video people keep using as evidence to back up their kind of pro-Israeli argument. And it's a video that is usually titled, I think it's Hamas or Palestinians beat family from their own home, something like that, with varying titles like that, and people keep sharing it as being in Palestine and trying to show that Palestinians are like brutal people, and unjust things happen in the country on like a regular basis. But actually the video was of Israelis arresting a man, only hitting one man from his own home, but we don't know the context. We don't know if he hit first or if he broke any laws or whatever. But we know that it's actually in Israel, and a lot of people see this as backup for Israel's cause, that the Palestinians are the aggressors, when the video is of Israelis being aggressive.
Well, I haven't seen the video that you speak of, but I definitely know that along the same lines, I've heard a lot of, well, not a lot, few people, I should say, that have brought up instances where they say that Hamas or most particularly the terminology I hear most is Islamic extremists will use people as human shields. And I just told somebody on a post, it's read just this morning. So that's a non sequitur argument. We definitely know that Israel has employed that same tactic themselves. Of course, everybody much knows by now, I would think, the picture where they had the 13-year-old Palestinian boy sit on the hood of a military vehicle so nobody would fire at them. So, when both sides are using that tactic, you can't really say, that it's one side or the other. And that's the most unfortunate, aspect of it, because as I said last time, I advocate peaceful resistance and peaceful revolution. And I don't know exactly for another people, where I can draw that line. For myself, it's in defense of my own life or my own property or my family, my loved ones. But it gets to be, kind of a gray area there when Hamas will just fire rockets off into Israel not indiscriminately, And I really, hate to see that, because then the world would see how right they were and see that it's, so unjust what's happening to them. But because they are firing back, then you have a two-sided argument that you would not have otherwise. And that's most particularly, one of the reasons, that I advocate not being violent, because then you will have given them no justification to use further violence against you in, shall we say, the world court, as in the world is watching, things are being reported in the news.
What do you think of Hamas? Because a lot of people kind of put the majority of Palestinians and Hamas in the same kind of box. But Hamas, we're kind of, the democratic system in Palestine was pushed by Israel, and Hamas got elected through that system. So what do you think of the kind of uprising of Hamas?
I think that that was one other point that I didn't make there that hit my brain that you brought up as an excellent point there yourself, is that you can't take the actions of a certain percentage of people and say that that is those people, how they act. You look in your country or our country, can you say everyone is like you? No, you can't, So it's just a certain percentage of people that are partaking in the violence. And so then once again we see that label gets put on a people as a whole. And, it's like I said, it's very cautiously that I tread on these waters, because I can only speak for myself. And, as I've made my travels around the web, there's a lot of people that say things like, first world problems are really the worst problems, aren't they? So it's hard for me to say, while I'm here in my bedroom in my neighborhood where, bulldozers aren't driving into my neighborhood and knocking buildings down, what I would do. So it's a very different set of circumstances that most of the people in the world find themselves in as compared to their situation. So I don't know that I can say what's right for them. I just know that if, like, say, I'm in a situation where I'm defending my life, my property, or those of my family or loved ones, then I feel if we're under a direct threat, then that is the time that it is okay to use violence. If you are meeting violence that is, being used on you, with violence directly, but not indiscriminately. I don't really know all that much through the research that I've done about Hamas specifically. But I do feel that I can understand how frustrated they are with the situation when it's been decades long that they've been rankly abused, and that's putting it lightly. So I can understand why some people would want to retaliate for what they've been subjected to, but I just don't know if, once again, and it's not really my place to say, I don't think, because I'm not in their situation, but it seems that they'd be better to do it in a more directed fashion where they can say, look, these people just came in, aimed machine guns at us, and bulldozed our buildings down, so we fired at them, because we were under a direct threat.
Yeah, you can really see the difference on a short documentary by Vice called Crime and Punishment in the Gaza Strip. And they go and talk to a lot of Palestinians, and then they see Hamas in front of the cameras, with their balaclavas and their camo gear and their AK-47 shooting into the air and stuff like that. And these are the only people really in front of the cameras. It's not giving Palestine a good image, in my opinion, to the rest of the world. And they don't even show their faces the majority of the time. So,
and with the gray area of intelligence, that we see through these days and times that we discussed last week as well, that they bring in mercenaries and security for hire, like Blackwater, stuff like that, to go in and incite things. So especially when we're not showing anybody's face, how do you know even who that is? But then, of course, that's what gets attention. That's what gets headlines. So, a human interest story on someone's, living conditions there in Palestine is much less attention-grabbing and headline, attention-getting, as far as, the mundane aspect of a day-to-day, picture of somebody's life there, as compared to, hey, we've got a bunch of crazy people firing off machine guns in the streets and we don't even know who they are for sure.
Yeah, I remember sharing that online, and sharing at the same time there was the recent Israeli-Palestine conflict, and so we were posting a lot from basically what we could find, and of course most of it was Israel bombing Palestine. There was a lot more of that than Palestinians attacking Israel, and so it was kind of funny that we could check the messages that we would receive, and there would be people saying that we were, just against Israel for biased reasons, that we've just picked a side. And then there was people saying that we were unfairly saying things against Palestine as well. And we were just trying to post things about both sides, because we're definitely not on the sides of Hamas, and we're definitely not on the sides of the Israeli movement either, but we are on the sides of the people. And of course, there was a lot of people that refused to take their orders to go into Palestine, and there was big protests in Israel against the bombing as well. And of course, the majority of Palestinians probably don't want Hamas to bomb Israel because of the consequences. So we'll just go to a quick break, and we'll come back to this anyway.
You're listening to A2Zen FM, life-altering talk radio. Anything from activism to Zen and everything in between, right here and now. Informative, inspiring, engaging. Our hosts provide you with the global news and educated advice you need to make a difference in your life, in your world. Knowledge is power. a2zen.fm.
Exposing the Truth Radio intends to be as open and uncensored as possible. Freedom to express unpopular views is key to global evolution. Everything we post and allow posted is not necessarily reflective of the absolute truth, nor do we endorse every word or every piece of media here. Having stated this, we seek to post and broadcast highly accurate information from alternative, mainstream, and fringe sources. Remember to listen to Exposing the Truth Radio, and you decide.
This broadcast is not the views or opinions of A2Zen.fm nor any of the hosts here at A2Zen.fm radio and magazine. To contact Aaron, go to Facebook, Exposing the Truth, or exposingthetruth.info. Now let's get back to our hosts on Exposing the Truth here on A2Zen.fm.
Hello and welcome back to Exposing Truth Radio. So we were just talking about Israel and Palestine, the conflicts between them, and people's viewpoints on them, I guess. One other thing I wanted to mention that was pointed out in the documentary I just mentioned is the Israeli drones over Palestine. And the Palestinians basically believe that if you wear certain clothes, that these drones that are going over Gaza will basically just kill you instantly just for wearing certain clothing. What do you think about that?
Well, I had not heard of that one yet either myself, so I will have to look into this documentary more. I don't know how advanced the capabilities are with the drones, but I certainly would find it would probably not be something that was without reason. Without the realm of possibility for them possibly to be able to do. But that would be pretty difficult, I would think, unless you had it specifically set for like a certain signature pattern of a certain camouflage, something like that. We would know in that case that is probably more particularly someone who would consider themselves to be a combatant, but once again, what are the conditions under which these drones are being flown over Palestine? Is it while there is an actual conflict going on, or is this randomly, going on, when there's no actual conflict, like say Pillar of Cloud, But I certainly wouldn't find it to be without the realm of possibility, like say, especially because we know that like say more of the camouflage, they have certain signature patterns to them. The design of them. So that would be reasonable, an assertion to make there. But I don't think to say necessarily black clothes. And I would certainly hope that no nation would be doing anything so indiscriminate as that. We know
I think it was Hamas supporting headgear or T-shirts or things like that. Mm-hmm. And when the drones went over over that area, then the majority of people took cover so that the drone couldn't see them. And they did generally seem to be quite scared of the drones.
That would just be so irresponsible, not in my estimation like Israel's really worried about that, but just the fact that what started basically the whole Pillar of Cloud, quote-unquote, operation or conflict was the attack on one of the Hamas leaders. And we know that there were other civilians killed in that. So, once again, you have a situation where you're indiscriminately picking targets, and then you're going to have collateral damage from those targets. So that would just be, so blatantly irresponsible. I'm not even sure I have another word to describe how irresponsible that would be on the part of any nation. But again, to, as we say, keep things fair and impartial and not just be one-sided, that's why I find it to be so horrible that Hamas fires indiscriminately into Israel as well, because then you're talking civilian casualties here, you're not talking combatants. which I would prefer if there were no combatants in the first place, even more so. But, at least if we could limit it to combatants engaging each other, then we don't have people sitting in their homes trying to eat dinner and worried about whether they're going to have a bomb flying through their window to kill them all or not. But one other point, I wasn't sure right before the break there if you had wrapped up your question or not. But one thing that I did want to touch on with the subjects you brought up of, whether we're being one-sided or not, is the fact that in our case here in the U.S., we can look at it and we can say the official U.S. policy is that Israel is illegally occupying Palestine. Do not support settlements. I don't know if that's the same in the UK. Is that your policy, do you know?
I'm unsure on the policies.
Okay, yeah, I know that definitely that's our line here in the States, is that we do not support the settlements when we do consider it to be an illegal occupation on the record. So, of course, we still give them all of their aid, and we don't penalize them in any way. But, our official story is, from the Obama administration, that it is an illegal occupation and that they don't support any settlements in Palestine. So,
yeah, it reminds me of the UN vote recently to give Palestinians, I think it was like partial human rights, and there was only 4 countries that were more against it than either neutral or for their rights, and the 3 countries against it was only the United States, Canada, and Israel itself.
And, that's the problem is because of the fact that we are, most particularly in the States, and I would certainly feel Britain as well. I'm not too sure about how involved Canada is with Israel, but, certainly we are very intertwined here. And that's why I've started doing synopsis, if you will, of the book, The Israel Lobby, by Mearsheim and Walt. And, like I say, we don't penalize them for anything. We're still giving them all their money that we've promised them, but we have Congress people basically signing pledges. They've done it in a few various forms over the years, and I'm not sure exactly what their component is now, but with AIPAC, they had them signing pledges. Cynthia McKinney, former congresswoman, came out and went on the record and said that they were having people sign pledges. As soon as she came out and said that and made a public statement about it, then AIPAC changed up their game and they started having senators write a paragraph or 2 in support of Israel and putting them on their websites there in Israel. They could show basically that they had support from U.S. officials instead of the pledges. And now I think that they've moved back to pledges was the last thing I heard, but I'm not entirely certain. But so we're, so interdependent now that we're really in, a very ambiguous situation, where we say our official policy is that it's an illegal occupation and we don't support the settlements in Palestine's lands, but then at the same time, when something like this comes out, then we, jump to kind of defend Israel at the same time.
Yeah, and they always say it's defense as well. Do you know about how much the United States does support Israel, and do you know if it's only monetary, that we only send them money, or do you know if we also send them technology, weapons, etc.?
Well, I know that the stated figure for many years running now, at least a decade, I think probably a couple decades, has been around $3 billion a year. And from what I've read, that figure is actually projected to be higher. It's projected to be about $4.3 billion. Because basically one of the things that we do is, here it is right here. Representative Lee Hamilton said in 1991 that Israel is one of the 3 countries whose aid substantially exceeds the popularly quoted figures, and said that the figure was closer to $4.3 billion. As the official figures are stated, as of 2005, Israel had received $154 billion in 2005 dollars from the U.S. since its creation, as well as other additional material support. But yes, so that answers part of the question. And to answer the other parts of your question, yes, we also give them other financial aid that's not counted into that in R&D projects. And as the authors have stated in the book, that most of that R&D, the U.S. isn't even looking to get any of the technology out of it. We're not even interested in it. We're like, it's junk to us. We're not even worried about it. But we'll still put the money in and justify it as a joint venture in developing some technology that we're not even going to use at all. And then, of course, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I wasn't until I was reading the book, that they have, on occasion, taken the technology that we've sold them and they have reverse engineered it and sold the technology to China. So, definitely the way that our U.S. policy would state it, I'm sure we're not necessarily allies with China. So, basically they're subverting our technology and selling it to the enemy, so what kind of ally is that? Now, as well, though, too, of course, as we were just discussing, we'll give them diplomatic support as well. Basically, we have the highest veto count of anyone in the United Nations. I think it is 32 times that we have vetoed, because we are, I forget their exact terminology for it, but we're senior members. So any of the senior members, it only takes one of them to say no, and that's it. It's done. It's killed. So we have 32 times anything that was touching on something that was going to have some kind of negative impact on Israel. The U.S. just said, nope, we're not going to do that. So, they get additional diplomatic support. And as well, that $3 billion a year that we give them in financial aid every year, we give them that in one lump sum payment. And no other country on the face of the planet do we do that with. It is only Israel. Israel has topped the list in foreign aid since 1976 for the United States. And we give them $3 billion so they can go deposit it in the bank, and then they can make another, who knows how many million. Let's see, actually I've got it right here. Congressional Research Service estimates that it costs the U.S., this is talking about making the lump sum payment. It costs us $50 to $60 million per year to borrow funds for the early lump sum payment. And the authors point out that according to the U.S. Embassy in Israel, early transfer of FMF funds has enabled Israel to earn some $660 million in extra interest as of 2004.
And $3 billion is $10 per U.S. citizen, regardless of age as well, just to put it in kind of perspective of how money that is.
And to put another further perspective on it, that's a brilliant point there, but as well, the authors point out that is about $500 per Israeli citizen in aid that they get, and the second highest country on U.S. foreign aid list is Egypt, and it works out for them to where they get about $20 per person in foreign aid per year.
And I've read a little bit about how Israel manipulates their currency even more than China, so they can keep their prices down and kind of say that they don't spend as much money and that they have less money, and that, they have lots of it. They're just manipulating the currency to kind of keep the prices down.
Well, it wouldn't be surprising at all. I mean, both the U.S. and Israel, are very well Rothschild owned. So, it's definitely a tactic they've been employing for centuries. So, it's basically just a continuation of what they've been doing since they figured it out. How they can manipulate the markets, how they can manipulate inflation and economies, and then they just keep using the same tactics over and over again and say it's the invisible hand of the market. Yeah, that invisible hand belongs to a Rothschild.
Okay, so I think we'll take a little break from and go to one of your songs. I think we'll go to DCOG, but firstly, do you want to just explain what DCOG means?
Yeah, basically the establishment in Washington is more or less of a cartel. We do deals for drugs. We go take oil from other countries, and it's basically a mafia operation that we see in existence. And so it just kind of hit me one day, and I said, DC, original gangster, DCOG, huh? And the song just kind of wrote itself from there. And, the chorus is, it's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power for DCOG thugs. And I think that pretty well plainly states it. It's a mafia operation, and that's how they're running our government.
Okay, so let's play the song, and then we'll come back to speaking more about Israel.
Check, cause I wasn't made gangster in the family with the right to demand. You want something done, put the cash in my hand. I wanna claim my paper that's unconstituted, eroded away. I'm patriotic, need to nuclear attitudes I find to be self-evident. Might not be so bad to have some dead president. DCOG. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. Gangsters from the west side taking territory, so eager to make the money, it's the same old story. The Capitol Hill posse is taking all our riot and putting our brothers in a racket Wall Street fight. The lady they made of her a whore, selling her for wholesale at the corner store. Liberty's a whore and we too seem to be lying on our backs for our security. DCOG. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's feeling good. It's a crimson flood. The moral masquerade. Finley Bell show raid. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs. It's all about the money, it's all about the drugs, it's all about the power of the DCOG thugs.
So that was DCOG by United Slaves of Amerika. So we're just going to change the topic now to talking a little bit about GMOs and Proposition 37 and those related issues. So, Michael, what do you think about Proposition 37 losing the vote?
Well, there was a lot of big money spent. I did a series of graphics myself once I got wind of the fact that a lot of these companies were putting, and I did get a lot of comments where people said, put it in perspective, if Coke spent $2 million, that's fairly well a drop in the bucket to them. But then I, of course, countered with, this is just one state we're talking about. So you have to pretty much, in my mind, at least multiply that by 50, if each state was to get an initiative on the ballot. And then as well, you would probably figure as well that as it became more prevalent and we're seeing more initiatives on ballots, they would start spending more and more money. So that is a drop in the bucket. They are right, but it's only a drop in the bucket of what they're willing to spend to keep people from getting their GMOs labeled. Because, of course, the crux of it is that they're realizing that people in the States are now starting to realize, the world, how many countries is it, do you know offhand? I'm not sure. How many have banned GMOs or at least gotten GMO labeling? I think it's somewhere in the order of 90.
I don't know how many. It's a lot of countries. There's more in the past few months since the study in France.
Certainly, France and Russia both have been really revamping their legislation on it since that study came out. And I really can't wait to see the live internet study that they're going to do. I don't know if you heard about that, but Russia, the French study, they did, I believe it was 200 rats in the French study, and they had a control group, of course, that had no GMO products at all. They had one that just had GMO foods, and they had one that was just having Roundup added to their water, and then a group that had Roundup added to their water and was eating GMO foods. And, of course, it went right in order, just as you would expect, in the cancer rates and kidney and liver damage rates, accordingly, from control group all the way up to both GMOs and drinking Roundup in their water, of course, had the highest amounts of cancer. So the two main points that were pointed out about that study as not necessarily flawed, but not as conclusive as they might be, were the fact that they said it wasn't an extensive enough study. But the people who were the detractors in that, and that's a Mother Jones article that they published that in, was that it wasn't an extensive enough study, but they did say that it would cost so much to do the study on the scale of the size they would recommend, that they do realize that they were up against limited funds for the research, most likely, and did the best they could with what they had. And the other thing that was pointed out about that study is they chose a breed or species of rat that was more inclined to developing tumors. But I really feel that that's inconsequential, because you still saw a rate that was increased with the amount of GMO products that they were fed. So, even if they are more prone to developing tumors, the ones that were not having any GMO products at all in their feed or water had less cancer than the ones that did. So, that's pretty conclusive right there. And that is what anybody who has detracted the study at all has said, is that, there's something very disturbing here. We definitely need to look more into it, but we just don't think this one was conclusive enough to convince us of the allegations or findings, that they are asserting. But certainly there's something disturbing here, and more work needs to be done. So it's not that they discount it entirely. It's they have a couple of points that they take exception to with it, but they also do address that it was done well enough to where they know that now more research needs to be done on it. So, yeah, like I say, Russia now, they're going to do 100 rats in their study. And unfortunately, I don't like the length of time they're going to do it for. I think is going to be around 90 days or less. And really, the longer the tests are, the more conclusive they are, because as I understand it, you don't start developing the symptoms until about 90 days in. So
that's what the French study said.
Mm-hmm.
The French study lasted for 2 years, and they said that just after 90 days, a lot of the mice or rats, whichever they used, developed a lot of cancer just then.
Yep, and so I think it would be really interesting to see, though. Even if that is the cutoff point where you start to see it, at least we will still get some results, and it'll be, basically kind of like an open source experiment, where everybody can see how they're conducting the experiment and see what kind of results they're getting. That's going to be very interesting to see.
So what do you think about Dr. Oz that said that he supports genetically modified foods and that they're just as safe as organic foods?
I'm not familiar with this gentleman, but I would certainly say that anybody who's going to come out and make such a proclamation, share your research. I don't know if he has published research on it, but certainly I don't think that anybody can come out and make these claims without having done some research, and then let's see who funded that research. And I'd be willing to bet you that anybody who's on the side of GMOs is somehow involved with some geoengineering company, with which, as I did my research to do that series of graphics for the companies that put money into fighting Prop 37, you'd be surprised at some of the companies that are involved. Bayer, had put money into beating Prop 37 in California. And so I was like, maybe they're using some kind of corn syrup derivatives and, maybe cough medicines or something like that, some high fructose corn syrup to sweeten it up or, make it a little more appetizing. And so I did research, and they did what they call, quote-unquote, field trials of a GMO rice that was supposed to be repellent to their Liberty brand of pesticide. And so they tainted 30% of the U.S. crops with GMO rice. So now, of course, as we discussed, there are so many countries in the world that will not buy GMOs now. So they, not only lost money on, trying to spend time to differentiate now what's been tainted with GMOs and what hasn't, then now they're sitting on top of crops that they had ready for export, but now nobody will accept them because word got out that Bayer had tainted 30% of the U.S. supply of rice. So no wonder they were putting money behind it.
Yeah, and I've seen that on Facebook, on your United Slaves of Amerika page, you haven't really left anyone out of this kind of like GMO debate. You've been talking about Nature Valley and how some of their ingredients are most likely to be genetically modified. I've checked the ingredients of some of their products, and strangely enough, some of the ingredients for the same products are different. But in the UK, they don't state that they're genetically modified.
Well,
so
but
there is a high chance that they are in the United States.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. But then it's have you banned GMOs there in UK, or is it labeling?
It's labeled in the ingredients list.
Okay.
It's not it's not labeled on the front cover or anything like that.
Right. But still, that's one of the more frightening aspects of it all is the fact that they kind of steamrolled it right into our food supply, most particularly here in the U.S. And now we have about 90%, it's estimated, of corn crops are GMO, and 90% of soy products are GMO. So if you're buying something at the store that isn't specifically labeled, then if it's got anything with corn in it or anything with soy in it, then it's a 90% chance that what you're eating is GMOs. But unless people are aware of what products to look out for in their foods, then they don't know that they're eating GMOs. And that's why the labeling is so important, because at least it gives people a choice. I mean,
we posted
our
some
children that we're talking about.
We posted some things online about genetically modified organisms, quite a lot, and some of the people said that they just shop at places like Trader Joe's because they say that their food is organic. But after looking it up, Trader Joe's isn't entirely organic, and they basically said that they try and get organic foods, but there's no way for them to be 100% organic.
Yeah, and Whole Foods is the same thing. I forget what their tagline is, but it's something to the effect of being natural, something like that. Of course, that could be another debate maybe for another day, where that people still say that GMOs are natural because they still are planting them in the ground and they're growing out of the ground, so they still consider that natural. But Whole Foods has been selling GMO products and saying that they don't. So they basically got caught red-handed in that one. One of the better ones that I've seen here in the States so far, and I'm not sure how prevalent they are, is one called Earth Fare, F-A-R-E. And also I'd like to put it out while we're on this subject that the Center for Food Safety, if you go to their website, they have a downloadable app for your mobile phone. So that way, if you're at the store and you're debating on, I don't know if it's got GMOs in it or not, you can pull it right up on their mobile app, and it also gives you alternatives that you can buy to brand name products that are GMO. So
I just want to say about the definition of natural as well. I covered that on a previous show, and there's no legal definition of the word natural. So any product can just say contains natural ingredients or can put natural in it, and it can have GMOs, it can have artificial flavors, preservatives, coloring, sweeteners, and they can still say that it's natural because there's no legal definition.
And it's bad enough that most people aren't even aware of GMOs, but then when you have stores that use words like natural or healthy, organic, anything of that nature, and then they're selling GMOs, that's even that much more insidious, that they've got people's confidence. It was basically like in the 80s here when Walmart was, all about the USA, and then people started finding out that most of their goods were coming from China. It's putting up a false front and saying, oh, you can trust us to be to be in compliance with these principles that you have, and then just subverting that and betraying you, basically, and selling you something that you were trying to avoid. So, like I said, it's even more egregious, in my estimation, than just not labeling.
Yeah, I know most
does the research, then they can find it out, But in this case, you've told somebody, yeah, we're not going to do this to you, and then you did it to them anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know most apple juice in the United States is imported from China, and they use a lot of pesticides which are actually illegal in the United States. And they also use a lot of pesticides on bananas, which are imported. And there's a documentary called Bananas, or Bananas the Movie, that shows that these pesticides are making the workers sterile.
Yeah, I had done a graphic myself where I think they were just doing tests of the pesticide levels in corn in the U.S., and they had on full, like chemical suits out there in the cornfield, and I just labeled it out. GMOs aren't looking so appetizing now, are they? When you have to, drench something in basically gallons of pesticide, and then that's what ingesting. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I don't know that I know a better way necessarily to solve the problems of agricultural pests. But from what we've seen so far, they rolled DDT out, told us it was safe. Then no, now it's not safe. Agent Orange was safe. No, not safe. And then of course, this is all from the king of all the companies, is Monsanto. Brought us DDT, Agent Orange, and now GMOs, and now they're safe too, right?
Right, and I just remember a post from your page as well about the White House and Monsanto both being organic food.
Yeah, they serve organic food only, is what I've heard about Monsanto. Most particularly, I did read, once again, another Mother Jones article that had talked, they'd done an interview with White House chef that was in during the Clinton and the Bush years, and now he is not the current White House chef, but he said he is in contact with the current White House chef, and it's the same thing for the Obamas. There's no GMOs served in the White House at all, and usually, yes, it's they try to stay organic, and the graphic that I did, most particularly, yes, was pointing out the fact that Hillary had her own personal garden on top of the White House on the roof, and telling everybody else these GMOs are safe, and especially because the Clinton administration were the ones that introduced GMOs into the U.S. food supply, and then she has a garden on top of the White House, so she doesn't have to eat them. But they're safe for us.
Yeah, what do you think about Stanford University saying that organic food is no better than regular food with basically covered in pesticides?
I really, I'll have to say I'm no scientist here, but I will say that I certainly would not believe the validity of that statement. Most particularly, once again, when we take it to this situation that we just discussed, we know that if it's not all organic, that the predominant menu in the White House is organic. So if there was no difference there, why would they make a difference? Why would they put forth the extra effort to have the cooks bring in organic foods and be growing their own gardens of foods, if organic wasn't something that was healthier for you?
Yeah, I just want to point out a really good website called whatsonmyfood.org. And on this website, you can select any food from, apple juice, apple sauce, cranberries, lettuce, milk, pork fat, anything. And then it will list known, probable, and possible carcinogenics, hormone disruptors, neurotoxins, developmental or reproductive toxins, and bee toxins, as well as the pesticide rates, and they do a comparison between conventional and organic foods. So
that's really
that's
great.
To me a really good website.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Because that's really what's at the heart of this matter here. If somebody thinks that GMOs are safe, let them eat GMOs. But all we want is just to be able to have them labeled so we know what we're buying, and make an informed decision about what we're buying. And, it just seems that, once again, it would be circumstantial evidence in a court of law, but, we can see that they are going through major efforts to try to keep people from having this information. And if they are so good for you, or so not bad for you at the very least, then why would they be going through these efforts to try to hide information, suppress information, keep the labeling from happening if they were so, secure in the knowledge that their product was safe?
Yeah, it interested me and surprised me that some companies with the name natural or even organic that sell things like organic juices and things like that, they supported the Say No to Proposition 37 campaign, along with Bayer and Monsanto and Coca-Cola. When they're apparently selling organic foods.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised to hear that. I had not heard of that because there were many, organic farms there in the area, and of course you could see it was a very lopsided money battle. But they had raised money, of course, in support of Prop 37, and of course it was much less substantial amounts. But it was a lot of organic farms from the areas. I think even Raw Foods, the establishment that was selling the raw milk in California. I think they even actually somehow got some money together after their FDA raid and everything they've been through, and put some money into that, I think. So I'm surprised to hear that there were any, organic farms, companies, anything like that would oppose it in any way. That is bewildering to me, actually.
Yeah, I can't remember what companies these are, but I'm just going to read some of the companies that supported the Say No to 37 campaign. Monsanto, of course, DuPont, Dow, PepsiCo, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Bayer, Conagra Foods, BASF Plant Science, Kellogg's, Hershey, Hormel Foods, Syngenta, Ocean Spray, Pinnacle Foods, Dean Foods, McCormick and Company, Rich Products Corporation, Cargill, Morton Salt, Inventure Foods, and Household Tree Mills. That's some of the biggest supporters.
Yeah, and now we have a list of who we need to boycott and avoid. And one thing that I'd like to say overall about Prop 37 is, though it didn't pass, it did a lot in terms of waking a lot of people up to what's going on. So I feel it was a success. I feel it was a victory. Just that it got more people talking about it and more people aware of what's actually going on with their food.
Definitely. And we're just coming to the end of the show now. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me once again, Aaron.